advice for someone listening who wants to start giving back but doesn't know where to start? What advice would you give?
And it I always say this first and foremost. You can't look at it as you're getting into like a business, right? You gotta have a heart for it.
Mm.
Like you have to be willing to know that you may have to cancel some plans in life. You may have to cancel some probably important moments in your life that you know what I mean. With family, friends, and
Mm.
stuff like that. I said because I've had to put that to the side because, like I said, sometimes I feel I get a text message from the
Mm-hmm.
man upstairs like, "Hey, this just happened. What are you going to do about it?"
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be the one that says, no, I'm not going to do it. And then when my time comes to walk up them pearly gates, I get denied. You know what I mean? So I take that part of understanding that real serious. You know what I mean? And it was something that, there's some people in my life that didn't understand that, and I had to tell them, I was like, look, this is my path. I'm not expecting you to understand my path, but this is what I have to do, and I'm going to do it with an open heart. And if I upset some people on the way,
Mm-hmm.
so it be.
Yeah.
I mean, so it'd be so, you know, I've always told them is just, getting into it and doing it. I said, when you have an open heart about it, man, you're just gonna feel a whole lot better because it was something that you probably wanted to do for so long.
Yeah.
You just didn't know how to come about it.
Mm.
Just do it. Just, you know, I didn't think about like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday plan.
Yeah.
Like I just jumped in and head in, and I wanted to see where it went.
Figure it out along
And
the way.
you figure it out along the way. You know what I mean? And just be genuine about it. You know what I mean? Just have the heart for it. You know what I mean? And let everything fall into place because
Yeah.
that's how I feel that it did for me. Like I put my heart into it. For when I did the first one ever was for my dad, and everything just fell into place.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Everything fell into place. So I'm grateful for it. You know what I mean? Shout out to my dad. I wish he was here because I know, that he would be a big part of this, a big part of this. Because like I said, my dad liked to barbecue. I remember,
Yeah.
him doing it, you know what I mean? Not at no big scale of cooking,
Yeah.
but, we knew we was going to eat some chicken legs and some fajitas and, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Dad was cooking, so, I know he's watching down and, he's watching me carry his footsteps in. So,
Right on.
so.
We got to wrap it. Last question. What keeps you going even when things get tough? And if you could leave our listeners with one message, what would it be?
What was that like the first part you said?
The first one is what keeps you going even when things get tough? If you could leave our listeners with one message, what would it be?
What keeps me going when things get
Yeah,
my
that's a
faith
good
in the
one.
man upstairs, man. Because when I, you know, and the type of work that I do, I always tell my guys when we talk about, when things get bad, when things get tough, I always tell people, I said, what time did you wake up this morning? Like, I woke up at 6. I said, at 6:01, somebody didn't make it.
Mm. Wow.
Somebody's son, somebody's father, somebody's son, grandmother, somebody at 6:01, somebody didn't make it. Live your best life. No regrets.
Mm.
Right. And be happy and genuine about what you do. And that's what I teach my kids. I'm saying, like, you're not living a legacy for me. You're living a legacy for yourself and for your kids and your generation of, you know what I mean? So, I always, like I said, I always just try to tell them just to always stay positive and think positive. You know what I'm saying? Because, when you start thinking negative, you veer away from the path that you're trying to create. You know what I mean? So, that's me knowing that I felt that I've gotten closer to the man upstairs. It's just opened up and made me feel great about everything that I do. I don't hold no regrets in anything that I've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I think that that's what got me to where I'm at now. I said, but you know what I mean? I don't have that mentality of it anymore because everything is, positive. You know what I mean? So, and to my listeners and everybody watching, man, like I said, just, man, I mean, it's the same stuff that we repeat all the time, and you know what I mean. You got to keep God first. That's how you're gonna get through life. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's if you don't have Him first in your life, and I'm not perfect with it either. You know, I still have mistakes.
Of course.
You know what I mean. But you know, I wake up every morning, and I know that when I wake, if I made it to that day, I know somebody else didn't make it. So I try to enjoy every day. You know what I mean? Like it's my last. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know when I leave here and I go home. You know what I mean? You might see a Facebook post, you know, Trevino, blah, blah, you know, you know, or anybody, you know what I'm saying? It can happen, you know what I'm saying? You know, from natural causes to, you know, an accident on the freeway, you know what I mean? Like it could just be, you know, so tragic, you know what I mean? And then, you know, when you pass on to the next world and you're looking down, you're like, man, I should have, you know, I should have been, you know, a better person like this, or I should have got more involved with this. And, you know, so, you know what I mean? That's just my view on how I think, you know what I mean? Not everybody thinks the same, but you know what I mean? I do. What helps me out too is that I feel great when young kids ask me like, hey Pete, like, how did you make it? And I give them my little, you know, I give them my story, you know what I mean? And, you know, if it helps them, great, you know what I mean? You know, and if it doesn't, I want them to find somebody that will make it understand for them. You know what I mean? So.
Great, man. It's been an excellent conversation. So we covered your journey, a little bit of your journey using boxing and barbecue to impact lives and lessons that we learned along the way. If people want to support you, whether it's getting involved with the gym or attending the barbecue benefit, where can they find you?
Oh, man. Facebook. You know, you can
Pete
DM
Trevino?
me. Yeah, Pete Trevino. You can DM me. I'm actually... somebody brought it to my attention today that, you know, why don't I start a Facebook page for fundraising and benefit so that people know they can go here and click on that page and, you know, somebody might comment like, hey, you know what I mean? Can you put this on here so that they know they got one place they can click on, oh man, there's a benefit going on this weekend, instead of looking at shares and looking at, you know what I mean, somebody's, you know, news feed, they can go click on, you know what I mean,
there's like a group or a page,
you know what I'm saying,
specifically
but
for
public
that.
for everybody to see, to where people can post on there and, you know what I mean, and get the word out about what they got going on, whether I'm doing it or somebody else is doing it, but somewhere where, you know, there's going to be a good platform where followers are looking for the weekends and they're like, oh man, you know, who's having a fundraiser today, or you know what I mean, who's having a benefit, they could go and support, you know what I mean, and help out, you know. So that was a good idea, you know what I'm saying, something I'm gonna put some thought into, you know what I mean. And you know, and of course, like somebody told me today, they're like, hey, well, why don't you start a podcast? I got too much. I'm not a podcast guy. You know what I mean? That's shout out to everybody that has one. It's a lot of work.
There's a lot. There's a lot that has started just here recently. They're getting popular.
I was like, I don't tend to try to get into none of that. You know what I mean? I don't mind going on the platform and, you know, talking about the journeys and, you know, supporting other people. I said, but I said, if he's not going to start, I'm not going to start no podcast. I said, I'll go and get on those platforms and, you know, and share my story and help them, you know what I mean, get the word out of, you know what I mean, you know, the positivity that happens in our city and stuff like that.